I'm Melody Rissell. Thank you for watching In-Camera Review. The purpose of this series is to provide insider information and tips and tricks for new practitioners, bar exam takers, law students, law clerks, and legal professionals. We do this by interviewing judges and distinguished practitioners. If you like this series, click the like below and leave a comment.
Good morning. Thank you for watching In-Camera Review. Today, we have the pleasure and the honor of interviewing Chau. She is an attorney, practices in the Bay Area. And by the way, if you like what you see, make sure that you take a moment to smash that like button and subscribe. So, Chau, how you doing? Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to get a little bit of good morning. Good morning. We want to get some autobiographical information about you, like, in terms of where you grew up, where'd you go to high school, college and so on, and what was that like, and what in those experiences led you to becoming a lawyer. So please introduce yourself and tell us about yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Yen. Thank you for having me. Just really quickly about myself. I came to the United States when I was 5. My family and I landed in San Pablo, California, and we stayed in San Pablo pretty much, well, my parents stayed in, they've never really left San Pablo. I went to school at De Anza High and went to Cal for college. My first venture away from the family was to go to law school, which was at UCLA. I will say that my my childhood years were extremely informative of who I am today, and all of the various challenges that we had, all the challenges we had growing up, really, I think, it was difficult at that time, but I am so, grateful to have experienced what we did, because I think it truly has made me a stronger and better person. When we came here to United States, we were on government aid. We lived with my uncle and his family in a 2-bedroom apartment in San Pablo. The kids took care of ourselves while our parents took English learning schools and language classes, and my mom and dad delivered newspapers for a living to raise the 4 kids. And when you delivered newspapers, especially back in those days, you're not talking about one route, you're talking about 5, 6 routes, and they were getting up at 2, 3 in the morning to fold and deliver these newspapers. On rainy days, all of the kids got up to help because you had to put the newspapers in the plastic bags. And not only was that more time consuming, but it required more delivery time because it was much more difficult to handle the papers, and so just all the things that accompany bad weather. And so for every rainy day, and then on Sundays back then, I don't know if people remember, you would get those big huge Sunday newspapers with the huge inserts. Well, every Sunday we would all get up and help. And so back then we would always grumble, but it was part of life and you did it. Growing up, watching my parents struggle, they always said, you don't want this life. You want to study. You want to succeed. And so it was never a question growing up that I would go to college and that I would do something even after college. That was just never a, do you think you want to go to college? It was always, where do you want to go to college? What do you think you can do? And so growing up in that environment, pitching in all the time and seeing my parents work really hard to provide for us, they never took a vacation. Newspapers get delivered every single day, whether you're sick or you're tired. And so that instilled in me not just a work ethic and the drive to succeed, but also I think a lot of empathy for everyone who, not everyone, people work really hard and you don't always see it. And so, yeah, sorry, that was a very long story.
No, that's an excellent story. I mean, that's exactly the kind of story that's necessary. I mean, and so you're going to say more about how it influenced you. I mean, what are the, what in your background influenced you to become a lawyer and made you decide to go into this specific type of law, that type of thing. If you could expound on that even more. This is awesome.
Okay, so it's really funny that so especially in my culture, I was taught you don't speak to adults until they speak to you. You're silent at the dinner table, things like that. Could never talk back to my parents. There's a saying in my culture, Vietnamese culture, that if your dad tells you that a cat is a dog and the dog is a cat, then the cat's the dog and the dog is a cat. So you don't question. Because it's not your place. The adult you may think that they're completely wrong and it's absurd, but you don't know what you don't know, basically. And so it was very difficult for me, actually, especially in college, I was very intimidated by professors. I had a very hard time talking to them. I would be frightened to death to go to office hours. So I went to Cal. I lived at home partly because my dad wanted to keep his baby girl at home, partly because, just regular issues. But so I would.
That's awesome. That's cool.
I would go to Cal, and I was taking science classes, and I would have pre-lab, lab, and then lab write-ups, and it would just take a lot of time. And I was at Cal on a partial scholarship and partial financial aid, which required me to work on campus. And so when you add in the commute time, the lab time, the class time, and the work time, there was no time left. And I feel like I was able to succeed in college because growing up, I was so busy and time managed because, as I mentioned, we would wake up and help my parents. But then after school, we would, I or my brother would go on at the end of the month, we would go and collect the money from the subscribers. And then relative to the other immigrants that came from our country or my father's kind of like hometown, we came earlier. And so I spent a lot of time helping the later immigrants. I would translate, I would do paperwork for them. So all of those things, it would just take up so much time. And I worked starting in junior high every summer. And then in high school, I was working after school. So that upbringing taught me, as I mentioned, the work ethic, but also the time management skills. And that translated to when I went to Cal. And a funny story is, so when I finally got to go to law school, my oldest brother sat my dad down and he said, "Dad, Yen is not going to go to law school in San Francisco. She was able to get into UCLA. It's a better school. And so you're going to have to let her go," basically. And so after 2 hours of persuading my dad, I was allowed to go to UCLA for school, law school. And I said to myself, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to work while I'm in law school. It's going to be difficult enough. And I need to, give myself the best chances I can. And I will tell you, I'm at law school in LA and everyone is freaking out about how they don't have enough time. They're stuck in the library doing their outlines. And I'm just like, hey, you guys want to come over for dinner? I'll make some dinner. I got some free time. It was just so different for me. So I think that really shaped, the childhood, to kind of shape the entire journey for me. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, well, clearly established a work ethic and skills. I mean, did you have time for any extracurricular
So,
or any outside interests?
oh, I did. I participated in a bunch of sports. I did soccer, swim, tennis. I wasn't good at any of them, but I enjoyed participating. So, so that was fun. So yes, I did do those things. Yeah, to be honest, I think it was hard because, as I mentioned, I had all those other obligations, but I was able to do, some things. And to be honest, I was quite a nerd. I loved to read, so I'd be at home reading. My father was very, very strict on top of that. So I remember I would ask him, "Hey, Dad, can I go to the football game at the high school?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, but you need to be home by 7:30." And I said, "But this game starts at 6:30, Dad." I mean, he loosened up eventually, but so it was. I was a good girl. I'm surprised I didn't go crazier in law school.
That's awesome. What about now? Like, outside interests other than practicing law, or do you have any? I mean, or something that people wouldn't know that you like to do, or something that's different, or
So my husband always teases me, and he says, "I'm passionate for 3 months about something." So right now, I think, I think I mentioned earlier, we're moving. So right now, my entire focus is I'm calling the pod people, calling the packers, I've got lists and whatnot. But before all of this, I was really into remodeling my house. I paid attention to every single little detail. I planned everything out. I designed everything, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so that was a little bit longer than a 3-month project, but I have, in the last few years, especially actually during COVID, my gardening skills have shot through the roof. I can actually keep a plant alive. But joking aside, I think that I tend to like design and fashion, architecture, and so those are my interests. I've as I said, I remodeled the house, and we did the front deck, and I've done all of the landscaping myself, and I get lots of compliments, so I'm really proud. But we are moving, so I'll have another chance to kind of play around with another house and vision there. So I do that. I have 2 kids, so they take up a lot of time as well. And my daughter really enjoys baking. So these days, we have been baking together a lot. Yeah, but aside from, we just do all the typical things. The last weekend we went to Tahoe, and we went snowboarding, and that was a lot of fun watching the kids learn how to ski. So yeah.